Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Shabbat Shalom. Today's parasha this week is Sheminé, and we'll start off with prayer. The Sheminé means 8, and the readings are Leviticus chapter 9, verses 1 to 11:47. 2 Samuel chapter 6, verses 1 to 7:17. Ezekiel 36, 16 to 38. And from the Brit Hadasha, Mark 9, 1 to 13, Acts 5, 1 to 11, and 10, 1 to 35. 2 Corinthians 6, 14 to 7, 1. Galatians 2nd chapter, verse 11 to 16. 1 Peter chapter 1, verses 13 to 16. And Hebrews chapter 8, verses 1 to 6. Let me begin with some prayer. It's not on, switched on the side, I guess. Perhaps I need to check my mic. Check the mic already? It's on 100%. Very good. Make sure that the light's on, that's on outside. Okay. And we're going to start out with grace for our Shabbat meal. Blessed are you, Yahweh, our God, sovereign King of the universe. You nourish the whole world with goodness and grace and kindness and compassion. You give bread to all flesh, for your mercy endures forever. And through your great goodness, we've never lacked, nor will we ever lack, for food, shelter, clothing, even the monetary needs. All the needs of every day are met within you. Our Father, Abba Yahweh Yara. Praise and glory be to your name, and thank you, including for our salvation in Yeshua. What you provide for all of our needs every day and intimately care for each and every one of us. So we thank you and praise you. And all this for the sake of your great name, Aleph Tav Et. For you alone are Elohim, God, and you alone nourish and sustain and do good to all and prepare food for all of your creatures which you have created. Blessed are you, Adonai Yahweh. You nourish all. B'Shem Yeshua, Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Yahweh Eloheinu milek ha'olam asher natan lanu et derecha Yeshua b'Mashiach Yeshua Baruch Hu, Amen. Blessed are you, Abba Yahweh, our Father, our God, sovereign King of the universe. You gave us the way of salvation through Mashiach Yeshua. Blessed be he. Amen. Baruch Yahweh Yom Yom Ya'amos Lanu Ha'el Yeshua Itenu B'Shem Yeshua. Blessed be you, Abba Yahweh. You daily carry our burdens. The God of our salvation, in the name of Yeshua, B'Shem Yeshua, in the name of Yeshua, Amen. Blessed are you, Adonai Yahweh, our God, sovereign King of the universe. You sanctified us with your commandments and commanded us to engross ourselves in the words of Torah. Please, Yahweh, our God, sweeten the words of your Torah in our mouths and in the mouths of all of your people, Israel. May we and our offspring, the offspring of your whole house, your people, the whole house of Israel, may we all together know your name. and study your Torah for the sake of fulfilling your desire. Blessed are you, Adonai Yahuwah. You teach Torah to your people. Blessed are you, Adonai Yahuwah, sovereign King of the universe, our God. You chose us from among all the nations and gave us the Torah of truth. Blessed are you, Abba Yahuwah, giver of Torah. May the Lord bless you and keep watch over you. May the Lord make his presence to enlighten you. May he be kind to you, gracious. May he bestow favor upon you and grant you shalom, peace. B'Shem Yeshua, Amen. Open thou our eyes, Abba Yahweh, that we may behold wondrous things from thy law. Psalm 119. Our first reading, Leviticus 9:1 to 11:47. On the 8th day, Moses called Aaron and his sons and the elders of Israel, and he said to Aaron, take for yourself a bull for a sin offering, and a ram for a burnt offering, both without blemish, and offer them before Yahweh. And say to the people of Israel, take a male goat for a sin offering, and a calf and a lamb, both a year old without blemish, for a burnt offering, and an ox and a ram for peace offerings, to sacrifice before Yahweh, and a grain offering, mixed with oil. For today Yahweh will appear to you. And they brought what Moses had commanded in the front of the tent of meeting, and all the congregation drew near and stood before Yahweh. And Moses said, this is the thing that Yahweh commanded you to do, that the glory of Yahweh may appear to you. And then Moses said to Aaron, draw near to the altar and offer your sin offering and your burnt offering, and make atonement for yourself and for the people. And bring the offering of the people and make atonement for them, as Yahweh has commanded. So Aaron drew near to the altar and killed the calf of the sin offering, which was for himself. And the sons of Aaron presented the blood to him. And he dipped his finger in the blood and put it on the horns of the altar and poured out the blood at the base of the altar. But the fat and the kidneys and the long lobe of the liver from the sin offering he burned on the altar, as Yahweh had commanded Moses. The flesh and the skin he burned up with fire outside of the camp. Then he killed the burnt offering, and Aaron's sons handed him the blood, and he threw it against the sides of the altar, and they handed him the burnt offering too, piece by piece, and the head, and he burned them on the altar, and he washed the entrails and the legs and burned them with the burnt offering on the altar. And then he presented the people's offering and took the goat of the sin offering that was for the people and killed it and offered it as a sin offering, like the first one. And he presented the burnt offering and offered it accordingly to the rule. And he presented the grain offering and took a handful of it and burned it on the altar besides the burnt offering of the morning. Then he killed the ox and the ram and sacrificed the peace offerings for the people. And Aaron's sons handed him the blood, and he threw it against the sides of the altar. But the fat pieces of the ox and of the ram, the fat tail which covers the entrails, and the kidneys and the long lobe of the liver, they put the fat pieces on the breast, and he burnt the fat pieces on the altar. But the breast and the right thigh Aaron waved for a wave offering before Yahweh, as Moses commanded. Then Aaron lifted up his hands toward the people and blessed them. And he came down from offering the sin offering and the burnt offering and the peace offerings. And Moses and Aaron went into the tent of the meeting. And when they had come out, they blessed the people. And the glory of Yahweh appeared to all the people. And fire came out from before Yahweh and consumed the burnt offering and the pieces of fat on the altar. And when all the people saw it, they shouted and fell on their faces. Now Nadab and Abihu, the sons of Aaron, each took his censer and put fire in it and laid incense on it and offered it unauthorized fire before Yahweh, which he had not commanded them. And the fire came out from before Yahweh and consumed them, and they died before Yahweh. And then Moses said to Aaron, this is what Yahweh has said. Among those who are near to me, I will be sanctified, and before all the people I will be glorified. And Aaron held his peace. And Moses said to Mishael and Elazaphan, the sons of Ezekiel, the uncle of Aaron, and said to them, "Come near and carry your brothers away from the front of the sanctuary out of the camp." So they came near and carried them in their coats out of the camp. And Moses, as Moses has said, and Moses said to Aaron and to Eleazar and to Ithamar, his sons, "Do not let the hair of your heads hang loose. Do not tear your clothes, lest you die, and the wrath come upon all of the congregation. But let your brothers, the whole house of Israel, bewail the burning that Yahweh has kindled. And do not go outside the entrance of the tent of meeting, lest you die. For the anointing oil of Yahweh is upon you." And they did according to the word of Moses. And Yahweh spoke to Aaron again, "Drink no wine or strong drink, you or your sons with you, when you go into the tent of meeting, lest you die. It shall be a statute forever throughout all of your generations. You are to distinguish between the holy and the common, between the unclean and the clean. And you are to teach the people of Israel all of the statutes that Yahweh has spoken to them by Moses." And Moses spoke to Aaron and Eleazar and Ithamar, his surviving sons, "Take the grain offering that is left of Yahweh's food offerings, and eat it unleavened beside the altar, for it is most holy. You shall eat it in a holy place, because it is your due, and your sons' due, from Yahweh's offerings of food. For so am I commanded. But the breast that is waved and the thigh that is your contribution you shall eat in a clean place, you and your sons and your daughters with you. For they are given to you as a due, as your due, and your sons' due, from the sacrifices and peace offerings of the people of Israel. The thigh that is contributed and the breast that is waved, they shall bring with the food offerings of the fat pieces to wave for a wave offering before Yahweh. And it shall be yours and your sons with you as a due forever, as Yahweh has commanded." Now Moses diligently inquired about the goat of the sin offering, and behold, it was burned up. And he was angry with Eleazar and Ithamar, the surviving sons of Aaron, saying, "Why have you not eaten the sin offering in the place of the sanctuary, since it is a thing most holy, and has been given to you, that you may bear the iniquity of the congregation, to make atonement for them before Yahweh? Behold, its blood was not brought into the inner part of the sanctuary. You certainly ought to have eaten it in the sanctuary, as I commanded." And Aaron said to Moses, "Behold, today they have offered their sin offering and their burnt offering before Yahweh. And yet such things as these have happened to me. If I had eaten the sin offering today, would Yahweh have approved?" And when Moses heard that, he approved. And Yahweh spoke to Moses and Aaron, saying to them, "Speak to the people of Israel, saying, These are the living things that you may eat among all the animals that are on the earth. Whatever parts the hoof and is cloven-footed, and chews the cud among the animals, you may eat. Nevertheless, among those that chew the cud or part the hoof, you shall not eat these. The camel, because it chews the cud but does not part the hoof, is unclean to you. The rock badger, because it chews the cud but does not part the hoof, is unclean to you. The hare, because it chews the cud but does not part the hoof, is unclean to you. And the pig, because it parts the hoof and is cloven-footed but does not chew the cud, is unclean to you. You shall not eat any of their flesh, nor shall you touch their carcasses. They are unclean to you. These you may eat of all that are in the waters, everything in the waters that has fins and scales, whether in the seas or in the rivers, you may eat. But anything in the seas or in the rivers that does not have fins and scales, of the swarming creatures in the waters, and of all the living creatures that are in the waters, is detestable to you. You shall regard them as detestable. You shall not eat any of their flesh, and you shall detest their carcasses. Everything in the water that does not have fins and scales is detestable to you. These you shall detest among the birds, and they shall not be eaten, and they are detestable: the eagle, the bearded vulture, the black vulture, the kite, the falcon of any kind, every raven of every kind, the ostrich, the nighthawk, the seagull, the hawk of any kind, the little owl, the cormorant, the short-eared owl, the barn owl, the tawny owl, the carrion vulture, the stork, the heron, any kind of the hoopoe, and the bat. All winged insects that go on all fours are detestable to you. Yet among the winged insects that go on all fours, you may eat those that have jointed legs above their feet, with which to hop on the ground. Of them you may eat the locust of any kind, the bald locust of any kind, the cricket of any kind, the grasshopper of any kind. But of all the winged insects that have 4 feet, they are detestable to you. And by these you shall know, and by these you shall become unclean. So whoever touches their carcasses shall be unclean until evening, and whoever carries any part of their carcasses shall wash his clothes and be unclean until evening. Every animal that parts the hoof, but is not cloven-footed or does not chew the cud, is unclean to you. Everyone who touches them shall be unclean, and all that walk on their paws among the animals that go on all fours are unclean to you. Whoever touches their carcasses shall be unclean until evening. And he that carries their carcass shall wash his clothes and be unclean until the evening. They are unclean to you. And these are the unclean to you among the swarming things that swarm on the ground: the mole rat, the mouse, the great lizard of any kind, the gecko, the monitor lizard, the sand lizard, and the chameleon. These are all unclean to you, all that swarm. Whosoever touches them when they are dead shall be unclean until evening. And anything on which any of them falls when they are dead shall be unclean, whether it is an article of wood, or a garment or a skin, or a sack of any article that is used for any purpose. It must be put into water, and it shall be unclean until evening. Then it shall be clean. And if any of them falls into any earthen vessel, all that it is in it shall be unclean, and you shall break it. Any food in it that could be eaten, or on which water comes, shall be unclean. And all that drink that could be drunk from every such vessel shall be unclean. And everything on which any part of their carcasses falls shall be unclean. Whether oven or stove, it shall be broken into pieces. When they are unclean and shall remain unclean for you. Nevertheless, a spring or a cistern holding water shall be clean. But whoever touches the carcass in them shall be unclean. And if any part of the carcass falls upon any seed of grain that is to be sown, it is clean. But if the water is put on the seed, and any part of their carcass falls on it, then it is unclean unto you. And if any animal which you may eat dies, whoever touches its carcass shall be unclean until evening. And whoever eats of the carcass shall wash his clothes and be unclean until evening. And whoever carries the carcass shall wash his clothes and be unclean until evening. Every swarming thing that swarms on the ground is detestable. It shall not be eaten. Whatever goes on its belly, and whatever goes on all fours, and whatever has many feet, any swarming thing that swarms on the ground, you shall not eat, for they are detestable. You shall not make for yourself detestable. You shall not make yourselves detestable with any swarming thing that swarms. You shall not defile yourselves with them and become unclean through them. For I am Yahweh, your Elohim. Consecrate yourselves, therefore, and be holy, for I am holy. You shall not defile yourselves with any swarming thing that crawls on the ground. For I am Yahweh, who brought you up out of the land of Egypt to be your Elohim. You shall therefore be holy, for I am holy. And this is the law about beast and bird and every living creature that moves through the waters, and every creature that swarms on the ground, to make a distinction between the unclean and the clean, and between the living creature that may be eaten and the living creature that may not be eaten. 2 Samuel chapter 6, verse 1 through 7, verse 17. David again gathered all the chosen men of Israel, 30,000. And David arose and went with all the people who were with him from Baal Judah to bring up the ark of Elohim, which is called by the name of Yahweh of hosts, who sits enthroned on the cherubim. And they carried the ark of Elohim on a new cart and brought it to the house of Abinadab, which was on a hill. And Uzziah and Ohio, the sons of Abinadab, were driving the new cart with the ark of Elohim, and Ohio went before the ark. And David and all the house of Israel were celebrating before Yahweh with songs and lyres and harps and tambourines and castanets and cymbals. And when they came to the threshing floor of Nachon, Uzzah put his hand to the ark of Elohim and took a hold of it, for the oxen had stumbled. And the anger of Yahweh was kindled against Uzzah, and Elohim struck him down there because of his error, and he died beside the ark of Elohim. And David was angry because Yahweh had broken out against Uzzah. And that place is called Perez Uzzah to this day. And David was afraid of Yahweh on that day and said, how can the ark of Yahweh come to me? So David was not willing to take the ark of Yahweh into the city of David. But David took it aside to the house of Obed-Edom the Gittite. And the ark of Yahweh remained in the house of Obed-Edom the Gittite for 3 months, and Yahweh blessed Obed-Edom and all his household. And it was told King David that Yahweh has blessed the household of Obed-Edom and all that belongs to him because of the ark of Elohim. So David went and brought up the ark of Elohim from the house of Obed-Edom to the city of David with rejoicing. And when those who bore the ark of Yahweh had gone 6 steps, he sacrificed an ox and a fatted animal. And David danced before Yahweh with all his might. And David was wearing a linen ephod. And so David and all the house of Israel brought up the ark of Yahweh with shouting and with the sound of the horn. And as the ark of Yahweh came into the city of David, Michal, the daughter of Shaul, looked out the window and saw King David leaping and dancing before Yahweh. And she despised him in her heart. And they brought in the ark of Yahweh and set it in its place inside the tent that David had pitched for it. And David offered burnt offerings and peace offerings before Yahweh. And then when David had finished offering the burnt offerings and the peace offerings, he blessed the people in the name of Yahweh of hosts. And he distributed among all the people, the whole multitude of Israel, both men and women, a cake of bread, a portion of meat, and a cake of raisins, one to each. Then all the people departed for each to his home. And David returned to bless his household. But Michal, the daughter of Shaul, came out to meet David and said, "How the king of Israel honored himself today, uncovering himself today before the eyes of his servants, female servants, as one of the vulgar fellows shamelessly uncovers himself." And David said to Michal, "It was before Yahweh who chose me above your father and above all his house to appoint me as prince over Israel, the people of Yahweh. And I will celebrate before Yahweh. I will make myself yet more contemptible than this. And if I will be abased in your eyes, but by the female servants of whom you have spoken, and by them I shall be held in honor." And Michal, the daughter of Shaul, had no child to the day of her death. Now when the king lived in his house, and Yahweh had given him rest from all of his surrounding enemies, the king said to Nathan the prophet, "See how I dwell in a house of cedar, but the ark of Elohim still dwells in a tent." And Nathan said to the king, "Go, and do all that is in your heart, for Yahweh is with you." But that very same night the word of Yahweh came to Nathan, "Go and tell my servant David, thus says Yahweh, would you build me a house to dwell in? I have not lived in a house since the day I brought up the people of Israel from Egypt to this day, but I have been moving about in a tent for my dwelling. In all the places where I have moved with all the people of Israel, did I speak a word with any of the judges of Israel, whom I commanded to shepherd my people Israel, saying, why have you not built me a house of cedar? Now therefore, thus you shall say to my servant David, thus says Yahweh of hosts, I took you from the pasture, from following the sheep, that you should be the prince over my people. And I have been with you wherever you went, and I have cut off all your enemies from before you. And I will make for you a great name, like the name of the great ones of the earth. And I will appoint a place for my people Israel, and will plant them, so that they may dwell in their own places, and be disturbed no more. And violent men shall afflict them no more as formerly, from the time that I appointed judges over my people. And I will give you rest from all your enemies. Moreover, Yahweh declares to you that Yahweh will make you a house. When the days are fulfilled, and you lie down with your fathers, I will raise up from your offspring after you, who shall come from your body, and I will establish his kingdom. And he shall build a house for my name, and I will establish the throne of his kingdom forever. This speaks of Yeshua, not Shlomo, Solomon. But then there's the house that Shlomo, Solomon, will build. And I will be a father to him, and he shall be a son to me. And when he commits iniquity, I will discipline him with a rod of men, and with stripes of the sons of men. But my steadfast love will not depart from him, as I took it from Shaul, whom I put away before you. And this now speaks of Shlomo. And your house and your kingdom shall be made sure forever before me, and your throne shall be established forever. In accordance with all these words, and in accordance with the vision of Nathan, he spoke he to David. Ezekiel 36, 16 to 38. And the word of Yahweh came to me, Son of man, when the house of Israel lived in their own land, they defiled it by their ways and their deeds. And their ways before me were like the uncleanness of a woman in her menstrual impurity. So I poured out my wrath upon them for the blood that they had shed in the land, for the idols with which they had defiled it. I scattered them among the nations, and they were dispersed through the countries. In accordance to their ways and their deeds, I judged them. But when they came to the nations, wherever they came, they profaned my holy name. In that people said of them, these are the people of Yahweh, and yet they had to go out of his land. But I had concern for my holy name, which the house of Israel had profaned among the nations to which they came. Therefore say unto the house of Israel, thus says the Lord Elohim, Yahweh Elohim, it is not for your sake, O house of Israel, that I am about to act, but for the sake of my holy name, which you have profaned among the nations to which you came. And I will vindicate the holiness of my great name, which has been profaned among the nations, and which you have profaned among them. And the nations will know that I am Yahweh, declares Yahweh Elohim. And when through you I vindicate my holiness before their eyes, I will take you from the nations and gather you from all the countries and bring you back into your own land. And I will sprinkle clean water on you, and you shall be clean from all your uncleanliness. And from your idols I will cleanse you. And I will give you a new heart, and a spirit I will put within you. And I will remove your heart of stone from your flesh, and give you a heart of flesh. And I will put my spirit within you, and cause you to walk in my statutes, and be careful to obey my rules. And you shall dwell in the land that I gave your fathers, and you shall be my people, and I shall be your Elohim. I will deliver you from all your uncleanliness, and I will summon the grain, and make it abundant, and lay no famine upon you, and I will make the fruit of the tree increase, and the increase of the field abundant, that you may never again suffer disgrace and famine among the nations. And then you will remember your evil ways and your deeds that were not good, and you will loathe yourself for these iniquities and your abominations. And it is not for your sake that I will act, declares Yahweh Elohim. Let that be known to you. Be ashamed and confounded for your ways, O house of Israel. Thus says Yahweh Elohim, on that day that I cleanse you from all your iniquities, I will cause the cities to be inhabited, and the waste places shall be rebuilt, and the land that was once desolate shall be tilled, instead of being desolation that it was in the sight of all who pass by. They will say, this land was desolate, and has now become like the garden of Eden. And the wasted and desolate and ruined cities are now fortified and inhabited. Then the nations that are left around you shall know that I am Yahweh. I have rebuilt from the ruined places and replanted that which was desolate. I am Yahweh. I have spoken and will do it. Thus says Yahweh Elohim. This also I will let the house of Israel ask me to do for them, to increase their people like a flock, like the flock for sacrifices, like the flock at Jerusalem during the appointed feasts. So shall the waste cities be filled with flocks of people. Then they will know that I am Yahweh. Mark chapter 9, verses 1 to 13. And he said to them, truly I say to you, there are some standing here who will not taste death until they see the kingdom of Elohim after it has come with power. And after 6 days, Yeshua took with him Peter, James, and John, and led them up a high mountain by themselves. And he was transfigured before them, and his clothes became radiant, intensely white, as no one on earth could bleach them. And there appeared to them Elijah with Moses. And they were talking with Yeshua. And Peter said to Yeshua, Rabbi, it is good that we were here. Let us make 3 tents, one for you, and one for Moses, and one for Elijah. For he did not know what to say, and they were terrified. And a cloud overshadowed them, and a voice came out of the cloud. This is my beloved son. Listen to him. And suddenly, looking around, they no longer saw anyone with them but Yeshua only. And as they were coming down the mountain, he charged them not to tell what they had seen, until the Son of Man had risen from the dead. So they kept the matter to themselves, questioning what this rising from the dead might mean. And they asked him, why do the scribes say that Elijah must come first? And he said to them, Elijah does come first to restore all things. And how is it written of the Son of Man that he should suffer many things and be treated with contempt. But I tell you that Elijah has come, and they did with him whatever they pleased, as it was written of him. Acts chapter 5, verses 1 to 11. But a man named Ananias and his wife Sapphira sold a piece of property. With his wife's knowledge, he kept back for himself some of the proceeds and brought only part of it and laid it at the feet of the apostles. But Peter said to Ananias, "Why has Satan filled your heart to lie to the Holy Spirit, the Ruach HaKodesh, and to keep back for yourself a part of the proceeds of the land? While it remained unsold, did it not remain your own? And after it was sold, was it not at your disposal? Why is it then that you have contrived this deed in your heart? You have not lied to man, but to Elohim." When Ananias heard these words, he fell down and breathed his last, and great fear came upon all who heard of it. The young man arose and wrapped him up and carried him out to be buried. After an interval of about 3 hours, his wife came in, not knowing what had happened. And Peter said to her, "Tell me whether you sold the land for so much." And she said, "Yes, for so much." But Peter said to her, "How is it that you have agreed together to test the Spirit of Yahweh? Behold, the feet of those who have buried your husband are at the door, and they will carry you out as well." Immediately she fell down at his feet and breathed her last. When the young men came in, they found her dead, and they carried her out and buried her beside her husband. And great fear came upon the whole church and upon all who heard these things. Acts chapter 10, verses 1 to 35. At Caesarea, there was a man named Cornelius, a centurion of what was known as the Italian cohort, a devout man who feared Elohim with all of his household, and gave alms generously to the people, and prayed continually to Elohim. About the 9th hour of the day, he saw clearly a vision of an angel of Elohim come in and say to him, "Cornelius." He stared at him in terror and said, "What is it, Lord?" And he said to him, "Your prayers and your alms have ascended as a memorial before Elohim. Now send men to Joppa to bring one Simon, who is called Peter. He is lodging with one Simon, a tanner, whose house is by the sea." When the angel who had spoke to him departed, he called 2 of the servants and a devout soldier from among those who attended him. And having related everything to them, he sent them to Joppa. The next day, as they were on their journey and approaching the city, Peter went up on the housetop at about the 6th hour to pray. He became hungry and wanted something to eat. But while they were preparing it, he fell into a trance and saw the heavens open and something like a great sheet descending, being let down by its 4 corners upon the earth. In it were all kinds of animals and reptiles and birds of the air. And there came a voice unto him, "Rise, Peter, kill and eat." But Peter said, "By no means, Yahweh. I have feared, for I have never eaten anything that is unclean or common." And the voice came again to him a second time, "What Elohim has made clean, do not call common." And this happened 3 times, and then the thing was taken up at once to heaven. Now, while Peter was inwardly perplexed as to what the vision he had seen might mean, behold, the men who were sent by Cornelius, having made inquiry for Simon's house, stood at the gate and called out to ask whether Simon, who was called Peter, was lodging there. And while Peter was pondering the vision, the Spirit said to him, "Behold, 3 men are looking for you. Rise and go down and accompany them without hesitation, for I have sent them." And Peter went down to meet them and added, "I am the one you were looking for. What is the reason for your coming?" And they said, "Cornelius, a centurion and an upright and Elohim-fearing man, who is well spoken of by all the whole Jewish nation, was directed by a holy angel to send for you to come to his house to hear what you have to say." So he invited them in as his guests. The next day, he arose and went away with them, and some of the brothers from Joppa accompanied him. And on the following day, they entered into Caesarea. Cornelius was expecting them and had called together his relatives and close friends. And when Peter entered, Cornelius met him and fell down at his feet and worshipped him. But Peter lifted him up, saying, "Stand up. I too am a man." And as he talked with them, he went in and found many people gathered. And he said to them, "You yourselves know how unlawful it is for a Jew to associate with or to visit anyone of another nation. But Elohim has shown me that I should not call any person common or unclean. So when I was sent for, I came without objection. And I asked then, why did you send for me? And Cornelius said, 4 days ago, about the hour I was praying in my house at the 9th hour. And behold, a man stood before me in bright raiment. And he said, Cornelius, your prayer has been heard, and your alms have been remembered before Elohim. Send now, therefore, to Joppa, and ask for Simon, who is called Peter. He is lodging in the house of Simon, a tanner by the sea. So I sent for you at once, and you have been kind enough to come. Now, therefore, we are all here in the presence of Elohim to hear all that you have been commanded by Yahweh. So Peter opened his mouth and said, truly, I understand that Elohim shows no partiality, but in every nation, anyone who fears him and does what is right is acceptable to him. 2 Corinthians chapter 6, 14 to chapter 7, verse 1. Do not be unequally yoked with unbelievers. For what partnership has righteousness with lawlessness? And what fellowship has light with darkness? What accord has Hamashiach with Belial? Or what portion does a believer share with an unbeliever? What agreement has the temple of Elohim with idols? For we are the temple of the living Elohim, as Elohim has said. I will make my dwelling among them and walk among them. I will be their Elohim, and they shall be my people. Therefore, go out from their midst and be separate from them, says Yahweh, and touch no unclean thing. Then I will welcome you, and I will be a father to you, and you shall be sons and daughters to me, says Adonai El Shaddai, the Lord Almighty Yahweh. Since we have these promises, beloved, let us cleanse ourselves from every defilement of the body and of spirit, bringing sanctification to completion in the fear of Elohim. Galatians 2, 11 to 16. But when Caiaphas came to Antioch, I opposed him to his face because he stood condemned. For before certain men came from James, he was eating with the Gentiles. But when they came, he drew back and separated himself, fearing the circumcision party. And the rest of the Jews acted hypocritically along with him, so that even Barnabas was led astray by their hypocrisy. But when I saw their conduct was not in step with the truth of the gospel, I said to Caiaphas before them all, if you, though a Jew, live like a Gentile, and not like a Jew, how can you force the Gentiles to live like Jews? We ourselves are Jews by birth and not Gentile sinners. Yet we know that a person is not justified by the works of the law, but through faith in Yeshua HaMashiach. So we also have believed in Yeshua HaMashiach in order to be justified by faith in HaMashiach and not by the works of the law, because by the works of the law no one will be justified. 1 Peter chapter 1, 13 to 16. Therefore, preparing your minds for action and being sober-minded, set your hope fully on the grace that will be brought to you at the revelation of Yeshua HaMashiach. As obedient children, do not be conformed to the passions of your former ignorance. But as he has called you is sanctified, be ye also sanctified in all of your conduct. For it is written, you shall be holy, for I am holy. Hebrews chapter 8, verses 1 to 6. Now the point in what we are saying is this. We have such a high priest, one who is seated at the right hand of the throne of majesty in heaven, a minister in holy places, in the true tent that Yahweh set up, not man. For every high priest is appointed to offer gifts and sacrifices, and thus it was necessary for this priest to also have something to offer. Now, if he were on earth, he would not be a priest at all, since there are priests who offer gifts according to the law. They serve a copy of the shadow of the heavenly things. For when Moses was about to erect the tent, he was instructed by Elohim, saying, see that you make everything in accordance to the pattern that was shown you on the mountain. But as it is, Mashiach has obtained a ministry that is much more excellent than the old, as the covenant he mediates is better, since it is enacted on better premises. This concludes the parasha for this evening, for this Shabbat. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu, Abba Yahweh Melech Ha'alom, Asher Natan Lanu Toret Emet V'Shayeh Alom Natabakenu. Baruch Atah Adonai Naton HaTorah B'Shem Yeshua. Amen. Blessed are you, Adonai Yahweh, our God, our Father, sovereign King of the universe. You gave us the Torah of truth and set everlasting life in our midst. Blessed are you, Yahweh, giver of the Torah. In Yeshua's name we pray. Amen. Shabbat Shalom, everybody.